how to use this course. So this is really important because it's not just about keeping track of what things you want to install, but it's also about looking at what is your learning system look like right now from a bird's eye view? Where are there leaks happening? Because until you have that basic system set up where you know how to research and find great quality information, and then you know how to consume it quickly, you know how to take notes and synthesize that information into the right format, and then either memorize it or store it in a place that's organized, and then how to get those spaced repetitions and how to memorize it. So all those different pieces are important. And if you think about that as a flow chart of one stage to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, where are things leaking out? Meaning, where are you already in a good place in those stages, and which of those stages are you leaking a lot of information? So in the example I gave you before, I was reading these books and then I wasn't annotating them at all, and I was never looking at them again. So my reading speed wasn't really a problem at that point because I was reading a lot. So the problem wasn't finding good books or finding good information, because I had already figured that out just through using Google a lot and getting recommendations from other people. So those pieces weren't the problem. The problem was I wasn't getting any spaced repetitions, and I realized that getting those spaced repetitions, you don't want to have to reread the entire book. It's much quicker to read 5 or 10 pages of notes than to read hundreds of pages completely over again. And is there middle ground between those two? Yes. So you can annotate a book, you can make little notes in the margins, and so instead of rereading a whole page that has about 300 words on it, you can read maybe 10, 20, 30 words that are the things you circled or the things you underlined, or the little notes that you made in the margins that summarize the ideas. So you can cut down on big wastes of time, like having to reread the whole book. And that's an example also of friction. So if you don't have if for whatever reason you aren't able to take notes, let's say you listen to a lot of podcasts or audiobooks, stuff like that, then what's a way that you can get a spaced repetition on that? Or what's a way you can take voice notes or something else? So those are all things we're going to be talking about, and there's specific learning machines that you're going to learn how to use in different videos throughout the course. So those are the kind of things, based on how you learn right now, where's information leaking out, and then how can you use these machines, and also maybe switch up your strategies so that you eliminate those leaks and it gets to the next stage. Because the farther you go, the deeper your learning is going to be, the more efficient it is. Also, we're looking for ways to get off your computer or off your tablet or mobile, because the problem is when you're on those devices, unless you have really good discipline already, or you've shut off a lot of the notifications or added other barriers, it's really easy to get sucked into switching between tasks a lot, going to websites that waste your time, getting on YouTube and flipping around, or whatever it is for you. Everybody's different. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, Quora, whatever for you gets you where you just lose track of time, and then you come out an hour or two later and there's nothing really that you got out of it. So that's why getting off the computer is so important, because that's where you can annotate better. It's really hard to annotate digitally, and even if you can do it, most people don't do it. So that's another important thing, is when you're thinking about your system, think about your past behavior and think about, well, even though it's possible to do it in both situations, is it really going to happen 80% of the time plus? And if it's not, then it doesn't matter how good the technology is or how good the tool is or how much better it'll work, because if you're not going to do it, then it doesn't make sense. And a lot of this stuff comes down to motivation. So realizing, and one of the biggest motivators is realizing how little you will really retain if you don't do these things, and how much repetition is required to make up. So there's low quality repetition and there's high quality repetition. Low quality repetition is like rereading an entire book over again. High quality is reading 5 or 10 pages of notes that you took while you were reading that book, or synthesized afterwards, or even synthesizing stuff from multiple books and then coming up with your own model, your own framework or formula. So there's different levels of that, and even though while reading it may take an extra half hour to take notes while reading or annotate, the result is you save 5 hours of rereading that material, and that multiplies over the multiple repetitions you're going to need, and so it turns in to an absolutely huge advantage. So that's why it's important to get off the computer, because those spaced repetitions are usually not the most exciting things to do. It's most people are drawn towards new information over stuff they've already looked at. So that's why getting it off your computer, where it's harder to get distracted, and you put friction in place so that it's harder to just get back on a computer, get back on your phone, or get back plugged into some piece of technology. That's going to help you focus. That's going to eliminate procrastination or lessen it. And a lot of these things are you really got to understand how much it improves your performance to just get off the computer, get off technology while you're doing certain stages of learning. And then the last thing is just look at your bad habits. And we already kind of talked about this with getting sucked into whatever website or thing on your phone, and how that can waste a lot of time and take away. So even though something might be a good piece of technology, a good learning machine, if it's going to reinforce a bad habit, or it's going to suck you into a bad habit, then that's something that you should avoid, at least for now. And just because it's a decision you make now, doesn't mean it's a permanent decision. So sometimes you need to have training wheels where you temporarily put something off, or just stay away from something long enough that you can form a new habit, or increase the level of motivation you have to doing something. And then when you come back later and you have that motivation and you have those new routines and habits in place, then it's no longer an issue. Then it's no longer something that's going to have that pull that it once had. So focus on all those things as you're going through each one of these learning machines, and make sure that it kind of checks all the boxes, meaning that it's you're focusing first on the places where you're leaking information, where you're leaking knowledge, where you're leaking learning, and look for ways that you can use the technology but still not get into something that's going to suck you in and keep you away from creating those good learning habits. And then just staying focused. So all those things, think about, well, even though this is a cool machine, is there anything that are there any downsides that I should either prepare for, or I should just not use this for now and find an alternative?